Every September, all the attention in the tech world tractor beams into the Bay Area of California for Apple's annual iPhone event. That means unless Apple decides to mic drop, to peace out, to retire to spend more time with its money, which, to be 100% crystal clear, isn't happening, we're only a few weeks out from this year's big show. I'm Rene Ritchie. Welcome back to Vector. Let's do this. It'll start with the lights coming up in the Steve Jobs Theater, just across from the Ring at Apple Park in Cupertino, California. A couple of Dolby Vision projectors will spin up like FTL drives, technicians perched on top of them to make sure, for a couple of hours at least, they're the best calibrated machines on the planet. And that's when Tim Cook will put Sneaker to stage. He may speak briefly about emergency relief efforts and how everyone can join Apple in donating through iTunes and the App Store. He may share his ongoing vision for Apple and its place in the world. He may hand off to Lisa Jackson to discuss a policy initiative, or Angela Ahrens to talk about Apple stores. Or, given how much they'll have to get through, he may simply say,
"I'm dispensing with those other than to tell you everything's great,"
and get on with the show.
Apple Watch.
Cook will likely give us a brief update on Watch as a business, using numbers right off the Bezos relativity scale. Then he'll hand off to Jeff Williams, Apple's COO, but also the executive in charge of Apple's health efforts in general and Apple Watch in specific. Apple Watch remains the shuttlecraft to Starship iPhone, even if LTE has put a little warp into its drive. That's why, after the original spring launch, Apple has moved Watch to the fall. The two are a team. For the last few years, most of the big watch updates have been on the inside, longer lasting batteries, more powerful systems in package, and so on. This year, we may get the first redesign. iPhone X kicked off the trend of deleting, or at least minimizing bezels, and increasing the ratio of display to surface. This year, the watch may finally close that big black ring around its OLED. Instead of making the watches smaller though, Apple will likely make the displays bigger, and include a next generation S4 package to drive it. New health and fitness sensors to power new health and fitness features are always a possibility as well. It's just a question of whether or not they're ready. Those are always multi-year projects. If there's any battery budget left to spend, it's a toss-up what I'd rather see Apple spend it on. Full UI kit apps or persistent always-on time. Since I think the nature of apps is going to change, especially on Watch, I'm going to go with persistent time. My watch needs to be a watch, after all. There'll also be a new fall watch band collection, because watch bands are the fastest way Apple has ever found to separate me from my money. Damn.
Next up, I'd like to turn your attention to Apple TV.
Since Apple TV 4K shipped just last year, there's probably not going to be any new atoms this year. Likewise, HomePod. Tim Cook could give us an update on that leg of the business, but it's still not very long. Q could announce a new theater mode where Apple TV and HomePod stereo pairs work better together, please, oh please. But aside from that, all we have are long shots. A new Siri Remote that finally cracks the TV control conundrum, because that would be swell. A bundled in Apple-designed game controller, which would be great for those who want it, but expensive for those who don't, or if it's optional, still nothing developers could rely on customers actually having in their hands. Likewise, HomePod Mini or HomeBar Theater, I'd love to see them at some point, but I'm not holding hope it'll be this fall. What there will be, I think, is simply new bits.
Next up, iPhone.
Tim Cook could spend some time talking iPhone numbers, which continue to be silly high, despite ongoing attempts to downplay them, probably in an effort to manipulate the stock price. Or he could simply talk about what really matters to customers, the iPhone value proposition of being an easy-to-use camera that makes it effortless to take pictures, a convenient Apple Pay and credit card wallet that enable private, secure transactions, and a terrific internet and gaming machine that still fits into your pocket even as the displays get bigger and better. Then he'll set Phil Schiller, Senior Vice President of Marketing, loose on stage, and he'll have a lot of work to do this year. Once upon a time, Apple released a single new iPhone every summer or fall. Then, in 2013, Apple introduced both the new flagship iPhone 5S and the less expensive iPhone 5C. In 2014, instead of a flagship and a less expensive model, we saw a flagship and a bigger flagship. That was iPhone 6 and iPhone 6 Plus. The same in 2015 and 2016. Then, in 2017, we got the iPhone 8, the iPhone 8 Plus, and a third new iPhone, the next generation iPhone X. Now, in 2018, Apple's probably going to stick to that 3 new iPhones this year, only this time it'll be a flagship, a bigger flagship, and a less expensive model. That includes a 6.5-inch OLED iPhone Plus, a 5.8-inch OLED iPhone, and a 6.1-inch LCD iPhone. The two new OLED flagships should be the next generation versions of last year's iPhone X, same sized and bigger. Cameras are one of the most important features. They drive upgrades. Last year was all about putting true depth on the front. This year could be about getting the equivalent on the back. It's interesting we only saw the really cool new iOS 12 AR features in Messages and FaceTime. Maybe Apple was waiting on the new iPhones with the new rear cameras to put them into the camera app as well. Second generation Face ID, next generation OLED, 512 gigabytes of storage, all are possibilities as well, driven by a new, even smoking faster Apple A12 system on a chip. No USB-C on the phone ends though. It still came out way too late and too thick for Apple to consider switching to anything but full-on wireless next. But USB-C on the other end of the cable, along with a faster charging brick, feels right. The other big and more recent rumor is Apple Pencil support, maybe with a ProMotion 120 frame per second variable refresh display. I would love that. It would not only be music to my eyes, but give me the digital field notes and mobile sketching experience I've been clamoring for. Apple's no doubt had it in the labs for a while, so the only question is, will it ship?
Air Power. It's a mat that you place your iPhone 8 or iPhone 10 down, and it just starts to charge. And it's a beautiful new interface. It doesn't stop there. You can place your Series 3 Apple Watch down on it, and it starts to charge as well. And you can place your AirPods with the optional new wireless charging case on it, and it starts to charge as well.
Apple's not going to price drop the current iPhone X. It's still too expensive to make, but the LCD version will replace it in the lineup, and it could bring back some Apple chromatic color. That would be so great. I wish we'd see more colors on the flagship as well. Black and white and one signature series a year, maybe alongside Product Red in the spring. It would really keep everything so fresh feeling, so new.
iPad.
The new entry-level iPad 9.7 that Apple announced in March was transformative. With Apple Pencil support, it was literally half the Pro for half the price. But fall is all about the full Pro. If Schiller doesn't want to go back-to-back, Greg Joswiak, Jaws, Vice President of Product Marketing, may do the honors instead. And the key here will be keeping the Pro lineup looking special by keeping it looking special. In other words, giving it the iPhone X design style as well. Whittling down the bezels and deleting the home button will get you most of the way there, especially if the displays stay at around 12.9 and 10.5 inches. It removes casing while preserving content and leaves them just as powerful and ever so slightly more portable. Whether that costs us the 3.5mm headphone jack because it doesn't quite fit under the newer, larger display, we'll have to wait and see. Without a home button, there's no Touch ID. But Face ID should take its place. That means a true depth camera system on front, if maybe not the equivalent on the back yet, and all the AR and Animoji fun that comes with it. Whether it's powered by last year's A11 Bionic, or if Apple wants to make a statement about who's really pushing the convertible space, this year's A12 chipset, we'll have to wait and see as well. I'd love a smart keyboard that had some kind of capacitive spacebar in lieu of a trackpad, and a next generation pencil, especially if Apple could call it the number 2. Either way, the Pro story this year will be all about the hardware.
I'm going to turn it over to our Vice President of Hardware Engineering, John Turnus, to tell you more about the Mac.
Somehow, some way, over the last few years, Apple lost its direction with the Mac. There's no need to rehash it all here, but the TLDR is this. The Mac Pro bet wrong and is now waiting on a modular redesign. The Mac Mini kept getting pushed off the refresh list. The iMac has never been more powerful, but no longer looks as modern in the age of iPhone X. And the MacBook was never able to drop down in price to replace the similarly non-refreshed Air. And the MacBook Pro, while incredibly popular, has also been incredibly divisive with traditional Pros. For the last little while though, Apple's been working hard to turn all of that around. The iMac Pro is one example. The 32GB silicon barriered MacBook Pro is another. Next year, new Mac Pros and Pro displays will help seal the redemption deal. So what does that leave for this fall? Intel Coffee Lake updates for MacBook and iMac, and perhaps even Mac Mini. That latter one would really please a tiny group of people who dearly love and still use that device, myself included. It's the new MacBook Air that would really rock the mainstream socks off though. Apple hasn't had a new sub $1,000 computer since the last one defined a generation of Ultrabooks. Again, MacBook just never dropped low enough in price, and MacBook Pro without the Touch Bar dropped too many ports but not enough dollars to get there. A modern, updated MacBook Air wouldn't just be delightful, it would be absolutely disruptive.
one more thing.
It's also possible, though maybe not yet likely, that we'll hear more about Apple's upcoming TV shows and magazine subscription services. Probably no Bob Mansfield driving an Apple car on stage, and probably no Tim Cook rocking the Apple reality glasses. At least not just yet. So when will Apple hold the 2018 September event? This is pretty much the worst best or best worst kept secret in technology. Best because Apple never ever tells anyone when it's going to be, but worse because since iPhone 5, Apple has announced every new iPhone during a special event held the first or second Tuesday or Wednesday of September. Now, past isn't always predicate, but past events are the best indicator of future events. Apple can and will throw curveballs whenever the company's logistics or strategy demands. Still, based on their current pattern, it's likely we'll see this year's event on or around Wednesday, September 12th. Why? The first Tuesday of September is the 4th, and that's just too early compared to what Apple's done in past events. The second Tuesday is the 11th, and September 11 is akin to a Memorial Day. That leaves Wednesday the 13th, or maybe Thursday the 14th, as the dates that best fit the current pattern. At least until Apple changes the pattern. And will Apple be live streaming the iPhone event? Almost certainly. The March event wasn't streamed because it was held at a school, but Apple has streamed all of its events for the last few years now. And if you want to watch it all in style, you can with Vector pins and Vector t-shirts. I'm so excited about these. They're brand new and I love them. They've got the great bold orange background, the black V for Vector, the black and white yin and yang rings, and the t-shirt is on this charcoal / interface gray, so the whole look really just pops. And yeah, I'm totally biased, but I think they're some of the best looking pins and shirts ever. And if you like them, or if you just want to support the show, or if you just want to look terrific, you can check them out at standard.tv/Vector. It works with Apple Pay, so it couldn't be any easier or more secure, and I truly, truly appreciate your support. So, now I want to hear from you. What are you expecting from Apple's September event? What do you most want to see? What do you really not want to see? Anything that will make the show for you? Anything that will break it? Hit like, hit subscribe, and then let me know in the comments. And thank you so much for watching.